Hey guys, it's Adam G. Fleming here from Chaam, Cowboys Publishing. Great to talk to you today. Introduce myself a little bit here on the Chaam Cowboys channel since this will be one of our first videos. I'm the author of White Buffalo Gold, The Art of Motivational Listening, a nonfiction book, and 3 books so far with co-author Justin Fike, the Stetson Jeff Adventure Series. That's a lot of fun. So you can look me up on Amazon if you want and check out my books. Today, I would like to talk about how literature cannot be explained. I think I got very good education in 6th grade in the rural Bureau County in Illinois in a little tiny town called Tiscawa. And my 6th grade English teacher's name was Mrs. Jones, and she did a great job drilling us on grammar and things like that. Mrs. Jones, hey, if you run into this, how you doing? But one of the things that I encountered somewhere between 6th and 9th grade was this idea that you ought to try to explain something on a test or a worksheet in English class. And I always thought it was really, really funny to do that. So you would read a little passage, like maybe just 4 paragraphs out of some book, and sometimes it would be coming from a famous piece of literature, and sometimes it would just be like, I don't know, they just made some stuff up, a little piece of writing, and then it would say, why is this funny? And then on the worksheet there would be this line that says explain. And I always just laughed at that because if you have to explain why it's funny, you're just like, okay, here's a nice cow, and it will follow you around the barnyard. Now take a knife and stab it a million times, and you'll have steak. So I guess that's a bad analogy, but I mean you get the idea. You don't have the cow anymore. You've reduced it to this thing that supposedly makes it easier, in literary terms to consume. Obviously, with a steak, it is the only way to consume a cow. Burgers are okay too. So I'm reading this book, almost done with this book called Life is a Miracle, an Essay Against Modern Superstition by Wendell Berry. Highly recommend this book. And he starts talking about my favorite American novel, which is why I'm doing this on one of my very first videos for the channel, which is Huckleberry Finn. I believe Huckleberry Finn really sets the tone for American fiction, satire especially, and really sets the tone in some ways for what we get when we watch Stephen Colbert. So he says the plainest and most emphatic denunciation of critical reductionism, and one that is generally ignored by critics, is the notice posted at the beginning of Huckleberry Finn. I'm going to read this. Persons attempting to find a motive in this narrative will be prosecuted. Persons attempting to find a moral in it will be banished. Persons attempting to find a plot in it will be shot. Now, Wendell Berry. Mark Twain's point, I think, is not that his book has no motive or moral or plot, but rather that its motive, its moral, and its plot were peculiar to itself as a whole, and could be conveyed only by itself as a whole. The motive, the moral, and the plot were not to be extracted and studied piecemeal like the organs of a laboratory frog. And the reason for this is plain. The value of Huckleberry Finn is not in its motive or moral or plot, but in its language. The book is valuable because it is a story told, not a story explained. Thank you, Wendell Berry, for not trying to explain Huckleberry Finn to us. So, not to make this video too long. First of all, please, teachers, stop asking your readers, your students, to explain stories. I mean, just get them to read. And I know that's a challenge. And I know it's tough to figure out whether or not they've actually read it. And getting them to explain what happened is part of the process there. I get that. But asking them to explain why it's funny, I mean, please, just don't. Just don't. So the second point that I want to make too is, man, if you haven't read Huckleberry Finn, and especially if you are a United States citizen who's attempting to write good fiction, I mean, great if you love Dickens, great if you love, whoever. And you might not like Huckleberry Finn. In fact, you might find the fact that he says the N word 163 times or something to be disturbing. Some other research I did on this book recently. Do you know when that book came out in the 1880s, people were incensed by the language in it because, not because it had the N word. Oh no, nobody said anything about that. That wasn't a problem at that time, in that era. The fact was, Huckleberry Finn talks about sweat, not perspiration. And that was something to consider banning a book over. So, language, man, it changes. It's different. And it's, maybe after you've read the 50-second N word in that book, you'll kind of get, I don't know, used to it, I guess. And I'm sorry that it's in there, but you got to read this book. If you and they haven't asked you to read it in high school English. I know they haven't. And there's a good chance they didn't ask you to read it in college. And if you want to be an American writer and you want to be relevant at all, you've got to read Huckleberry Finn. You guys have a great day. Hope you've enjoyed this, and we'll talk to you again soon from Chaam Cowboys Publishing. Check out our books on Amazon. Adam G. Fleming and Justin Fike.